Hello and welcome to this episode of Microsoft Advertising Insights. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Chloé Jubécourt, who is the PPC team lead at Keyade. Chloé, thank you for joining us today on the podcast. We're talking about retail insights, and particularly as we record, it's the beginning of November. We're getting closer to peak retail season. But also for most of Europe, and in fact most of the world, we've been experiencing coming out of the first lockdown for most countries due to COVID, and some countries now experiencing their second lockdown. And so today what we want to talk about is, what are some of the effects of that? And I guess to kick off, it'd be great if you could explain how you're seeing from an agency perspective, how some of your clients are kind of reacting, and what is the difference between the reaction from the first lockdown to reaction to the second lockdown.
Yeah, thank you, James. For sure, there is a big difference comparing to the first one and the second one. From my point of view, for the first one, most of our clients directly shut down their campaigns because they are like a lot of trouble to actually manage their supply chain. It was like something really new and a shock for everyone that really need time to make adjustments. But this time, because I think of the first one, they can actually they could work on the digital topics on their website, on how they can organize their supply chain in case this was going to happen again. So for the second lockdown, we noticed that most of our customers really want to, accelerate on the digital marketing tools that we have. And for example, in less than 24 hours, we had some clients that decided that they wanted to double their investments to make sure that they can actually increase their revenue or compensate the fact that some of their shop are closed. So it actually changed in few minutes compared to the first lockdown.
Yeah. So you're seeing that basically, whereas before there was like this panic and people retracting, now they're actually embracing digital as the way to go forward as we come into the second lockdown. Mm-hmm. Explain a little bit about specifically what are some of the changes that you're seeing in the strategy of some of your clients, and how is that being again sort of affected by the prospect of second lockdown?
Yeah, what we noticed with the first one is that because they shut their campaigns, they didn't actually take a stance, and some of their competitors actually stay online. It was really depending on the clients. And how they can actually manage the first one. But they noticed that if they want to, make their revenue they need to make online, they also need to, be considered by customers. And they really wanted to, push all the awareness campaign or consideration campaign. And usually my team, we are really focused on performances and conversion, and now we see that most of our clients, they really need to expand their marketing digital campaigns by actually touching all their customer at different points of the customer journey. So that's the main change that we actually noticed.
Yeah. So you're seeing a shift from search being seen as this pure sort of performance engine to something that's actually now seen as across all of the digital journey to from brand awareness all the way through to conversions. So clearly we are thinking about peak season and Black Friday. What are some of the things that you expect to see, and what are some of the trends that you expect to see as a result of what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, Black Friday is a really important topic. What we noticed this year is that it actually started really earlier this year. We are for 2nd of November or something like that. So for some competitors of my clients, it's already started. We have noticed that there are some companies that already have strong promotions online because they really need to make their business now because we're not sure what's tomorrow's made of. And so, yeah, it's really high peak season for retailers usually, but it's even more important this year. But what we noticed is that there's a lot of contradiction, especially this year, because also customers are actually changing their mind about the Black Friday. Like, do I really need to buy product during this time of the year because of the promotions, or do I want to buy more consciously and be more sustainable with the way I actually buy things? And that's the real paradox for customers, because they really need to reduce the gap, the revenue they lost with the first lockdown. So they really need this big retail season to try to reach their business goal, but also they want to stick to their brand images that they wanted to share, being more sustainable and be more conscious with their customers. So that's like a really complicated Black Friday this year.
Yeah, and I think it's a tough decision for any brand to where do they go on that line? Do they go all in to push for sort of ultimate consumerism, or do they try and go with a more sort of a muted message in order to touch on that idea of being more sustainable? So clearly, once we get past Black Friday, once we get past peak resale season, and hopefully once we get past COVID, it's clear that there are going to be some long-term implications, and that the world has changed. What do you see as the sort of the far-reaching impact of what we're seeing right now, and also for you as an agency, what are the implications for you in the future?
Yeah, concerning the retail trends, I think that now every company, even if they weren't, needs to work on the digital aspects of their website, of their brands, of their services, how they can actually improve what they actually give to customers with the digital. So the digital marketing will be even more important, I think, for retailers as in the long-term perspective, for sure. Also, what we noticed is that automation was a big trend already, like for at least 2 years. I think companies were conscious that they needed to go on the automation campaigns, automating bidding, etc., etc. And I think this will stay as well, because there are still a lot of signal that we actually can't manage as human. It's a really complicated environment, and we need still the automation to manage that. But what we noticed with COVID-19 is that we actually need even more the human now, also on digital campaigns, to make sure the strategy stays on track, because what we noticed is that the machine, they can't predict that we are going to have a lockdown. They can't predict that you're not going to be able to manage your supply chain. So you need human to actually manage that, make sure that the automation goes where you want it to go. And also to have this big overview and relation with your customers to actually adapt the strategy. So I think that's the 3 things that are going to remain in a few years.
Perfect. So I think if I try and summarize what we've talked about over the last sort of 15 minutes or so, we started by talking about, we're coming into the sort of second lockdown for many countries, and the impact of that seems to be that whilst most retailers were shocked first time round and kind of pulled back on their spending, now they're very much embracing digital as the way forward in order to interact with customers. Then we talked about the fact that search is being used not just as a performance channel, but actually across the whole of the consumer decision journey. And that for Black Friday, we're seeing that these trends are extending earlier and earlier into the season. But that there's this weird dichotomy for brands to think about: do they push and go all in on pushing this high consumerism, or do they try and think about being more sustainable and answering that very clear need from customers in order to think about, do I actually need to buy all of these things? And that's a tough call for brands to make. But I think the really interesting thing you said there is that at the end, once we're done with all of this, that we have gone through this shift, and that every brand is going to have to embrace digital fully now if they hadn't already been doing so. And that the really interesting thing is that even though we have these amazing sort of tools at our disposal with automation, with AI, now more than ever, it's still that human element, the human marketer who's making those decisions, who's reacting to those things in real time, to be able to actually drive campaigns forward effectively.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Chloé, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming to talk to us. And for those of you watching, I hope you found this useful, and we'll see you next time.